of our own Dr. Betty Shabazz for the 1997 to 1998 academic year. On behalf of the Medgar Evers College family, I would like to take this opportunity to say welcome, welcome, welcome. Diversity has always been one of the goals of the Presidential Lecture Series. Diversity in perspectives, experiences, people, leadership, artistry, and choice is what we seek in supporting the series. Ms. Monica Ellis is here with us today. She is a native of Pittsburgh who recently earned a master's degree from the Juilliard School of Music, with which Medgar Evers College is presently pursuing collaborative opportunities. Ms. Ellis is internationally known for what she likes doing best, that is, her music and creativity. Ladies and gentlemen, I now bring to you Ms. Monica Ellis, accompanied on the piano by Jose Garcia Leon. Thank you, Ms. Ellis and Mr. Leon. You have basically set the tone for the lecture today. Ms. Ellis and Mr. Leon have not only romanced us in several ways, but one of the ways in which they try to is to romance us intellectually in the form of music. There is always a reason for doing what we do. And at this moment, our freshman class president, Mr. Averill Thompson, will do just that, the purpose or the statement of purpose.
Just wait until everybody has a seat here. Okay. Welcome to this presidential lecture series. I hope that today you'll be able to get clarity and information about whatever field or whatever thoughts in which you have about getting a degree from this institution. I hope that this will also contribute and be a good asset to you so that you could be able to be good leaders in the next millennium or in this global environment. The Presidential Lecture Series is a component of the freshman year program, but its objective is to expose the entire student body at Medgar College to a wide range of individuals from the professional world of work. It seeks to attract authors, entrepreneurs, artisans, politicians, performing artists, technocrats, members of the academic academy, and anyone who has the expertise to motivate and inspire a population of college men and women. With the advent of the 21st century and the continued development of new technology, creative methods to address the needs of our student body must continue to be realized in a variety of forums. The Presidential Lecture Series is another form for providing educational experiences which will enable the students of Medgar College to become proficient in choosing academic disciplines. It also enables students to develop an appreciation for the world at large. Students are given the opportunity to engage in dialogue with many distinguished individuals covering the full scope of academic diversity and multiculturalism. It is an effort by the college to arouse intellectual curiosity and to raise the level of awareness of each student who is in pursuit of academic excellence. This academic year, the series is dedicated to the memory of our beloved Dr. Betty Shabazz, the former director of the Institutional Advancement and Public Affairs. Dr. Shabazz was the great supporter and frequent lecturer on the Presidential Lecture Series. Her profound words of wisdom inspired and motivated many members of our college family. Many of our guest lecturers are personal friends of Dr. Shabazz and come to Medgar College in tribute to her legacy and activists of education and human and civil rights. Like Dr. Shabazz, they too have committed themselves towards enabling a new world order and empowerment of people universally, and to the concept that education is the key to upward mobility and success as we approach the 21st century. Medgar College, through the Presidential Lecture Series, remembers Dr. Shabazz and pledges its continued objective to serving all people who are in relentless pursuit of academic excellence and career development. The college offers these words of Dr. Betty Shabazz to all who hear the series of lectures. Find the good and praise it. Thank you very much.
Those of us who are standing, kindly have a seat. Thank you. Since Dr. Shabazz graced this very podium on several occasions as one of the presidential lecturers, My colleague, Professor Beatrice Brathwaite, will now provide us with some moments of reflection on the life of Dr. Shabazz.
Thank you. How many of you knew the late Dr. Betty Shabazz? Show of hands. How many of you know of the late Dr. Betty Shabazz? Very good. Today, I am going to repeat the words that she said so very frequently. Take the best and make it work. I will read a poem entitled, In Remembrance, She Took the Best and Made It Work. This poem was written by Professor Dorothy Hopkins in the Sikh department. How many of you know Professor Dorothy Hopkins? Hands. Well, she's here at Medgar College, and you will hear her work. In remembrance, she took the best and made it work. Born Betty Saunders and adopted too. How did Sister Betty make it through? Let's look at her life, the bad and the good, to see if we can stand where she stood. Being adopted did not kill her spirit. She took the best and ran faithfully with it. She took the best and made it work. Appearing afraid and fully reserved, when she met Malcolm, she heard these words. This is your soulmate for all eternity. Take hold of his hand, set your love free. She heeded the words and gave him her hand, forever united by the word and a band. They took the best and made it work. Now Malcolm had dedicated his soul to the cause, going full speed ahead, not stopping to pause. And though he loved her, that we all could see, the cause was more dominant than his brown sugar Betty. Still, she took the best and made it work. When enemies invaded their home with fire, they recovered most rapidly, though things were dire. She stood by her man and her children too. What else would she expect, or what else would we expect Sister Betty to do? The fire could not kill, nor the bombs maim. Their devotion and love steadfastly remained. They took the best and made it work. And when the girls came, some 2 at a time, there were Malcolms and Bettys, and yes, yours and mine. And when Malcolm was suddenly taken away, it seemed that Sister Betty would have heck to pay. The world united around them to protect our dear Betty from fiscal ill wind. She took the best and made it work. Sister Betty came to Medgar from doctoral school. Her choice was so right. She was far from a fool. She was often quite outspoken, rarely holding her tongue, sharing lessons with the old and the young. And yes, she would tell us just how she felt. But in public speaking, to moderation she knelt, for she knew that she had inherited the cause. This cause was of her dear Malcolm X, who had paused. She took, what did she take? The best. And what did she do? Made it work. Though tragedy would never leave her alone, she stood down the challenges like a queen on a throne. When Kabila was entrapped by the devil's own snare, she hopped in a plane and was quickly there. Knowing the price that her girls had to pay, she continued her mothering day after day. What did she do? She took the best and made it work. Our sister has left us a message so clear. And this message is to every person sitting in this room today. Never give in to challenges. Never fail. Keep developing the capacity of your spirit and mind. So you will discover, surely, you will find that your future is brighter than you ever believed. It has been that way, would you believe, from the day you were conceived. Not something that it's coming yesterday. From the day you were conceived, your future has been bright. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me say to you, carry on the legacy of Dr. Betty Shabazz. Keep the fight. Be committed to your education, because you too must take the best and do what? And make it work. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Brathwaite. We are all going to follow in Dr. Shabazz's footsteps. Based on her precepts, we are surely going to take the best and make it work. At this time, Miss Monica Ellis and Jose Garcia Leon will share their musical talents with us. Thank you, Ms. Ellis and Mr. Garcia. Let us give them another round of applause for the extraordinary performance. When I told you they would set the tone of the music, maybe you did not, the tone of the lecture, maybe you did not believe it. But now you have seen for yourself. At this point in time, I would like to recognize several of my colleagues, I should say, maybe my bosses too, in the audience. At this time, I realized that time is of the essence, so I'm only going to call on two, so the others I did not neglect you, but I still acknowledge you. I would like to bring attention to Dean Fontaine Davis, who is seated at the front. And for those of us who do not know, the Presidential Lecture Series initially started under the direction of Mr. Davis when he was director of freshman year. So this is the beginning. And also Mr. Alexander Barton, who is the coordinator of the Presidential Lecture. All these diverse experiences that we are obtaining or gaining here now, it's because of all those individuals and many more. Mr. Barton is at the back. Raise your hand. Okay. Dr. Edison O. Jackson is the president of this institution. There is no need for me to reiterate it. Every great leader needs someone who can assist him in realizing his or her vision for the institution. The individual I speak of is well received at Medgar Evers College. That someone is no other than our Vice President and Provost, Dr. Kofi Lamotte.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Like many of you, I have, over the years, had a number of heroes and heroines. And our speaker this afternoon has been one of my heroes for the last 25 years. Our speaker also fits into a category of individuals whom I refer to as long-distance runners. Because as you'll see as I describe him, he has been involved in knowledge dissemination for a long, long time, and he has demonstrated that he is indeed a long-distance runner, one who is committed to addressing the conditions not only of African people in the United States, but of Africans around the world, and indeed the experiences of all people. When I was asked to introduce Brother Dr. Ronald Waters today, my first task was to decide what to tell you and what to omit. Dr. Waters' background is such that it would literally take about half an hour to simply list his accomplishments, and then another couple of hours to tell you what each of them entails. So I will start with the easier details and then move on from there. Dr. Waters received his Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Government from Fisk University in 1963. Both his Master's of Arts degree in African Studies and his PhD in International Studies were obtained in 1966 and 1971, respectively, from American University. Since 1971, Dr. Waters has used and is still using the knowledge gained from all three of his degrees for the betterment of society and to keep society well informed on current issues. Dr. Waters is an extremely accomplished scholar, political analyst, and activist. As a scholar, he has served in various capacities at several prestigious institutions, including Brandeis, Princeton, Syracuse University, and Howard University, where he served on the faculty for 24 years. Currently, he is a professor in both the Afro-American Studies program and the Department of Government and Politics at the University of Maryland, College Park. He is also the director and senior fellow of the African American Leadership Program in the Academy of Leadership, also at the University of Maryland. With more than 70 published articles and 4 books, Dr. Waters' works have been cited in classrooms, on television news shows, and radio shows across the country. Of his 4 books, 2 of them have received the Best Book Award from the National Conference of Black Political Scientists, one of which also received the Ralph Bunche Award from the American Political Science Association. Recently, Dr. Waters was personally honored with the Fannie Lou Hamer Award from the National Conference of Black Political Scientists. This is only one of the many awards which he has received over the years. It is evident that Dr. Waters' work is also exceptional outside of the academic arena, as he has served as a guest analyst on several national television shows, including CNN's Crossfire, CBS News Nightline, NBC's Today Show, and C-SPAN. During the presidential election season in 1996, he was the political analyst for Black Entertainment Television and The Voice of America. His work as an activist is no less praiseworthy. Over the years, he has maintained his positions both in the political spotlight and behind the scenes in one form or another. In 1984 and again in 1988, Dr. Waters played a crucial part in the Jesse Jackson presidential campaign, dealing directly with campaign and convention issues. Currently, Dr. Waters serves as the Vice President of the Constituency for Africa, which is an advocacy group based in Washington, D.C. Although he wears many different hats in his life as a scholar, political analyst, and activist, Dr. Waters has consistently maintained a proactive position in the African American community. He has been one of the champions and guardians concerning issues that specifically affect African Americans. We are honored to have him here today. I am pleased to present Brother Dr. Ronald Waters, a personal friend, an esteemed colleague, and a respected leader.
Thank you very much. Brother Dr. Kofi Lamoti. I'm very pleased to use that term because so many people hide behind their PhDs, and for those people who we know have been involved in the struggle to liberate black people for a long time, I think to call them Brother Doctor really is a term of honor, and I use that today. It's good to be with you. My first visit here to Medgar Evers College. And so I want to give my thanks to Professor Alexander Barton, who smoothed my way here and whom I had a number of discussions with. To President Averill Thompson. How does that sound? To President Thompson for his stating the meaning of his occasion. And certainly to Dr. Kofi Lamoti. I have known him for a long time. I have always admired his academic work and the level of his scholarship and his commitment. And I think that the people of this great institution really ought to be proud to have him here. As I told him earlier, there's so many of our colleagues in academia who talk about institutions of color who seldom serve them. And I think that while he is here, we ought to think about the commitment that people like that make. My 24 years at Howard University were very well spent, and I'm proud of every one of them in that institution. Today, we come here to honor the memory of Betty Shabazz, a friend of mine, great sister, teacher, and someone who, when you saw her, wherever she was, would always give you that great big smile. And she was about serious business. She was a diplomat. She was a member of the black leadership family. And she was a consultant and an advisor to many of our leaders, behind the scenes, very powerful force in helping our community stay together and move forward. And we will miss her. And so I'm just very happy to be here today to honor her. As I understand, she left a great legacy here at Medgar Evers College, and that places a tremendous responsibility on you, really, to live up to the best hopes that she had for everyone who passes through the doors of this institution. Underneath that, I congratulate you for being here, for having made it to these seats. Because you didn't have to be here. You know? Nobody put a gun to your head and said you had to come to Medgar Evers. And I know that a lot of you made it through great odds, tremendous odds. And so you are to be congratulated for getting in these seats. But don't get comfortable. Because again, that places on you a tremendous responsibility to get a true education. You know, a true education is a revolutionary experience in the sense that it can change your life if you take it seriously. I tell my students that, I want to be humble about what I can do when I stand before you, every classroom. And I don't pretend, really, that I am actually teaching you. I pretend, really, that I'm laying before you certain facts and conceptualizations and certain views of the world. And you can take them if you want to. Ultimately, what you do with them is up to you. There's a library over there. And it seems to me that that's really where education takes place. It's how many hours you are committed to spend on your behind, cracking the books in that institution, and taking responsibility, taking control of your own education. The classroom is just a door. That's all it is. And if you stop at the door, and that's all you take home, then you have short-circuited your opportunity to take advantage of this great institution. It can be a revolutionary experience. Think about Malcolm. We're talking about Betty. Think about Malcolm in jail, sitting on his behind, cracking these great books, changing his whole life, opening up the doors to a revolutionary experience of the mind. It seems to me that opportunity is here with each and every one of you today, if you would but seize it. So don't pretend that we're any great sages, that we have all of this information to impart to you. Take control of your lives. Take control of this opportunity. Take control of your education. You know by now that the great challenges that you face out in the street are awesome. I don't have to recite all of them for you. That's in part why it is so important for you to do that. All of these challenges, they're in the street and they're in the suite. But I think what we have to understand is that the same system determines them both. The same system of economics, the same system of political control, yes, the same system of sexism, racism, white supremacy, controls them all. What we often see in the street are nothing more than the manifestations of what's going on in terms of the systemic properties of power in this country. And sometimes we get caught up with the street level aspect of it. You have the opportunity, while you are here, to deal with the entire ball of wax. You have the opportunity to see it whole. You have the opportunity to make decisions about at what level you're going to attack it, at what level you're going to join it, at what level you're going to change it and improve it. The whole thing. And so think while you're here about brothers and sisters who never have the opportunity to deal with a whole problem, who only have the opportunity to deal with the street level manifestations of it, to suffer the impact of it, and who never have that chance to grapple with the change really that are controlling the whole of our people. You have that opportunity. And so I want to, in honor of the fact that I'm in Brooklyn, read a rap. This is by Wu-Tang. No, don't get, I ain't gonna read the whole thing. I'm not gonna do it all, you know I cleaned it up for you this morning. So don't, But this is Method Man. Method Man says, as the world turns, I spread like a germ, bless the globe with pestilence, the hard-headed never learn. It's my testament to those burned play my position in the game of life, standing firm on foreign land, jump the gun out of the frying pan into the fire, transform into the Ghost Rider or six-pack, into a streetcar named Desire? Who got my back? In the line of fire, holding back. What? My peoples, if you with me, where you at? Well, it seems to me that that's an appropriate question. My people, if you're with me, where you at? So where we at? My generation was a generation born in struggle. And as a matter of fact, sometimes I think that that is the character of that generation. Not only the civil rights leaders, but people like us up here on the stage. That we were socialized to confront the unjust power which controlled our people. The struggle generation. Awakened to confront the obvious enemies of social justice. Our segregated existence. That many of the things that we confronted, we could see. We could see, that you couldn't drink at a white fountain. We could see that the basketball courts, in white communities are off limits, and the swimming pools. And we could see that you don't only eat certain places. We could see all that with our eyes. And it affected the middle class and the bougies and low-income people. Everybody just the same. We could see that. And so these made obvious targets of struggle. And we confronted those in our generation. But we also left a legacy of simple-minded integration that I think that we are not just overcoming. I call it simple-minded integration because the depth of that particular political strategy, we didn't really think through. We began with Brown versus Board of Education and overturning the legacy of Plessy, the doctrine of Plessy in 1896, of separate but equal. And in 1954, the Supreme Court decision said, no, you can't have separate but equal. And so what we did was we propounded a political strategy of integration as a result of that. And now we see that the full meaning of integration has escaped us. And that the simple-minded idea that you could simply go into an institution and be next to a person of a different color and thereby somehow miraculously assume the essence of the excellence, the resources, and all the rest of it was not true. And the other thing that we forgot was that in doing so, that we often denuded the power of our own communities. We often did that. And so in Washington, D.C., for almost 30 years, I've driven up and down Georgia Avenue, one of the longest black business corridors in the world, only to find that many of our premier black restaurants closed upon assuming integration. And so I think we have to think about the coherence and the integrity of our community once more, now that we adopted many of the simple-minded strategies of the past. Young people in my generation sometimes joined their elders in these great struggles, and sometimes they did their own thing. Mainly what they did was to express the questions of their generation and try to adopt strategies which confronted them. So my question to you is, where are you at? Are you really the Generation X? Are you really a question mark generation? No, I'm glad to hear you say that. Are you about defining your own reality? And are you about then developing the power to change things according to that reality? Or do you simply want to come to Medgar College without any idea why you're here and leave with less of an idea why you came? I'm here today to say that you need to begin to shape that reality beyond the individual reasons for why you got in these seats. And I'm also here to say that we need you desperately. See, I came here not to preach at you, but to say that in the context of the human family, and in the context of the African American reality, and the people of color reality, that there is a need here that you can fulfill in taking us from this step of our existence to the next plateau. And so we need you, not just for yourself, but for the whole of that reality. We need you. For what? For what? For what? Now, I'm not claiming any wisdom here, because I know many people in my generation who are committed to nothing more serious than the struggle against crabgrass on the weekend. I mean, if that's sort of the level that you want to take it to, well, all right. But it seems to me that if you take it at that level, then you will be short-circuiting your children and your family and your children's children and your people. So think about where you take that opportunity. And even if you come from the islands, there is still just one struggle. There's just one struggle. You see, I don't regard this thing of the divisions of island culture and African American people as a serious division, because I know that there would have been no Black American history if it had not been for people from the Caribbean. You can't teach African American history without it. There's no way you can do it, you see? So if you are serious about that history and you understand the intermingling of our destinies and our past, then, of course, that leads you to another reality about what you have to do while you're here. So it's like Mayor Marion Barry said, if you got some idea about being different, get over it. Get over it. Because the same people, you know, who hit people born here upside the head, hit you upside the head. So the same question, empirical question, is what you're going to do about it is not a question of difference. It's a question of reality. So you have to reject, I think, the Twilight Zone existence and define yourself as equal, productive human beings, and take the measures to defend and advance that reality, no matter where you come from. If you're a person of color, that is essentially what you have to do. One question, born of the history and the struggle of one people. Therefore, we need you to think more seriously about change. Whether you will, with an MEC degree, slip comfortably into the Black middle class without looking back, or whether to conclude that the struggle for change is still relevant to you and your family, and to create greater opportunities for that. This means greater attention to political power. Political power. I think that in one sense, the legacy that we left you, that we ought to apologize for, was a legacy of participationism. That what we tried to do was to open up the doors to participation. What we didn't struggle hard enough with was a legacy outlined in the book Black Power, of sharing power, controlling power, finding ways to leverage more power. That's what Al Sharpton is doing. We don't evaluate him by whether he won or lost. When I was a co-director of Jesse Jackson's campaign, what we said was, this is not about our winning or losing. This is about our defining how we won in our own terms, our own way of winning. And when we look and see the political leverage that we built with that power in the system, we won. It's not about somebody else's definition of winning. It's about how much power did you amass, and did you use that power to the good? So always be thinking about how you can leverage that power for the good of people. Find the keys to that power. Develop the strategies of that power. And don't worry about convention. because for a long time, I've been out here saying that we needed, along with my brother, my evil twin, Ron Daniels, that we need a black third force in presidential politics, or we need, in his terms, a black political party. We need something which allows us to leverage our power. And of course, the people who make decisions in our community say, oh, no, that's ridiculous. But we've remained steadfast in our understanding of how a minority leverages power. And all you have to do is look at Ross Perot. He came along and showed you how a minority leverages power in the political system. He put 20 million votes between the two major parties. And after the election was over, he said, now, I'm thinking about having a public policy meeting down here in Texas, and I want you all to come. Do you know Washington cleared out like there was a nuclear bomb on the way? Everybody got on a plane and went down there. Everybody, of any political consequence whatsoever. Because he had 20 million votes wrapped up in his own political organization that he could deliver. So that's what power is all about. And what we have to do is to break through, to use the courage to break through to use it. We are not trapped in a convention which won't allow that. But if you're going to be serious, sometimes you have to confront convention in order to see clearly what you have to do. We have to see clearly, you have to see clearly, about the ideological struggles that confront our age, about the right or the left or the center. Why? Because that will define your approach to public policy. Public policy governs your life. Private policy does the same thing. And a lot of times you can't see either one. But you have to define that reality for yourself and then find the people and the organizations that reflect it and then seek to try to help push things in that direction. That's what I'm doing. That's what a lot of other people are doing. They are trying to define that reality, seek the power levels, and then push them in the direction to make change. It will define your approach to things like labor and things like poverty. It'll define your approach. I see people running around talking about, oh, the welfare reform bill is just great. Well, wait till the economy goes down and you find those millions of people in the street with no support and their 5-year term limit is run out. And figure out then how great this is. We have to see beyond that to how that public policy was created and therefore what side we have to be on in history. We have to see clearly because that defines our approach to health care. Are we for a straight capitalist notion of health care? Or are we for a balanced approach where the doctors get a chance to make some money and over here we cover those 40 million people who don't have any health care? You know, it was 37 million people that didn't have any health care when Bill Clinton came into the presidency in 1992. And he worked on it. And his proposal was rejected. And now it's gone up through managed care to 40 million people. 3 million more people don't have health care in this country. So it would seem to me that one has to find out what you think about that so that you can get on the right side of that issue and join the people who are struggling in that direction and push that issue forward. The same thing with education. They're looking at television the other day, and I saw Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece talking about vouchers, supporting vouchers. And I said to myself, I wonder what is behind her? Who is behind her? Because vouchers are no more than a system to destroy public education and to sort of rip off the cream of that system and leave the rest of our young children behind. Vouchers are being sold in the name of helping inner-city black youth. They're being sold that way, giving them a chance, a choice, a better schools and education, even private schools. Well, The House of Representatives just amended the Washington, D.C. appropriations bill to require that 2,000 children have access to vouchers. And you know how much each voucher is worth? $3,000. You know how much it costs to go to private school on average? $12,000. So one of those poor families is going to have to come up, at least one of them, with $6,000, what? $9,000 in order to attend these private schools. Right? So while the principle is being sold on the back of poor black people in the inner city, the law is not passed for them. The law is passed for everybody. These people back here benefit because they got $9,000. You see what I mean? They don't need the $3,000. That's a tax write-off for them. They got $9,000. What it does is to open up the doors to the federal coffers to fund the private schools they send their children to. That's what it does. So it's a nice shell game, folks. So for those of you who think, well, I'll just, support this and don't make any difference, it does make a tremendous difference. Problem is that many of our black middle class are getting frustrated and angry and moving and don't have any faith in the schools, and not just the black middle class, but others frustrated about the condition of urban inner city schools and don't want to hang on. And I think that we are in a crisis when it comes to this system, because it seems to me we have to decide which way to go. Either we have a system that gives everybody a chance, or we have a system which is a hodgepodge, 1,000 different systems of education. But President Clinton, I think, has one thing right, and that is that we face a future out there of economic competition. If you look at Europe today, what you see in Europe is economic consolidation on the European continent. Europe 1995 was about that. You can get in your car today and you can ride from one end of Europe to the other. All the road signs are changed. They're about changing other things. They're about talking about a euro dollar, a single financial unit. They are consolidating their economy. The same thing with respect to the Asian tigers, consolidating their economy. So if that is the case, then that is the future that we face. That's what we're looking at in terms of economic competition, global economic competition. So how do we face that with 1,000 different educational systems in this country? How do we face that by eliminating the Department of Education, when we need federal leadership in order to compete? Well, we've got some crazy folks in Washington, and I think that what you have to do is see this issue clearly and not be caught out there on the side of supporting people who don't make much sense and therefore helping to short-circuit your future. It will help you to make decisions about how to use your tax dollars. Sometimes people talk about taxpayers as though people of color don't pay any taxes. Well, if you total it up, there are about $60 billion worth of taxes that people of color pay in this country. And that's a big part of what goes in and runs the government, and which is then redistributed to the states. So that's your money. You work for that. And yet, many times, you don't have anything to say about those tax dollars. Why? Because the assumption is you don't pay any taxes. Therefore, you don't have any right. That is part of the reason why we must enter into the struggle for political power, because that determines how those dollars are spent. Your money, how your money is spent. Well, it's the same thing with private dollars. The Ford Foundation. Did you buy a Ford last year? Yeah, sure you bought a Ford. Well, that money is parked up there in the Ford Foundation. Well, that's white folks' money. No, that's your money, too. Now, don't start me talking about reparations. There's a lot of money in this country that belongs to you that you're not using, that you're not fighting for. You see, these resources are yours to claim. And power is the route to do it. If we're talking about, and yet people have made us ashamed to claim that money. That made us ashamed. They say we're dependent and all that stuff. At the same time, they're taking billions of dollars and putting it in their pocket. They say you being dependent on the government, and they're taking the subsidies. So don't be caught out there being ashamed of using your own money to benefit your own community, to put a floor underneath your family, to make it possible for your children to go to school. Don't be ashamed to fight for those dollars in order to develop your community. We need for you to think more carefully about yourselves and your future. About things like sex. I mean, as simple as sex. Now, I'm not the sex police, so I'm not going down that road. I'm not going down that road. But what I am looking at is a new welfare law. And the new welfare law says that if you don't pay your child support, you're in trouble. There is a new national database being created of brothers and sisters who don't pay their child support, mostly brothers. That's right. So see, you're not going to be able to run from New York to New Jersey anymore and get out of paying the child support. You're not going to be able to do that because the database is going to track you. Whatever job you take, 2 weeks later, your employer puts that in the database. So the state knows where you are and the feds know where you are. Right? And so they come and take that money out of your check. Now, if you resist, then that is another instrument for criminalizing you. So what we have here is something benign called the new welfare law, which many of you are not paying any attention to, but which is going to catch you short either with your check or looking at a new way to go to jail. So I'm telling you, people in Washington, D.C. have a plan for you. You better begin to take control of your own lives and to look at these little things that are tripping us up. Because the atmosphere out here is such that we will not make it unless we are far more serious than we have been before. The future is about also technology. The electronic information revolution will change the way in which we consume information, change the way in which we will structure every aspect, almost every aspect of our lives. And so those of you who think that you got a few years before you learn how to use a computer or you get into email, or no, you don't have that long. Because it's affecting my avocation as a professor. So all these professors you see around here are going to start playing tricks with you, right? And the trick is, well, I'm going to put half of this course content on the computer, right? And if you don't know how to use it, then you're in trouble. Or I'm going to do this by video conference. Or I'm going to do something else which requires assuming that you can get into a database and extract the information for your own education. Now, if you don't know how to get into a database or use the internet, you're in trouble. So I'm saying that we need to take a far more vigorous approach toward consuming this technology, preparing ourselves, because the jobs of the future, I know that many of you already know this, I have that little caveat down there on the bottom of the application form. You know, do you know WordPerfect for Windows? Or can you navigate in it? That's right down there on the bottom now, right, isn't it? That's right. So there's no sense in coming here and ducking all of that. The New York Library is one of the most sophisticated technological instruments in the country, and growing more so every day. New York Library. So if you can't use Medgar library, go down and use the New York Library. Or tap in from your home with your computer to the New York Library, or to the Library of Congress, or to the Library of Paris, anywhere in the world today. Because see, your competition is not so much before you. It may be an Indian student in New Delhi. You know, those are your competitors for jobs anymore. That brings up the last point I want to make, and that is we have to understand the global reality, which is to say that globalization of our economy is breeding into this political economy a lot of racial tension. A lot of what you see that passes for racial tension is being created by tensions over unemployment. We have to take this seriously. A white, middle-class, college-educated manager in a corporation all of a sudden finds himself sitting out on the curb without a job and trying to figure out how he got out there. And his first thought is, well, you did it. Affirmative action. That's how he got out there. I know how I got out there. One of these affirmative action hires took my job. In the meantime, the head of his corporation got a $1 million bonus for eliminating all those jobs. Just so the price would rise on the stock market. It has nothing to do with us. Has everything to do with profit. Has everything to do with the competition that this corporation is facing. Is somewhere located in Japan. Right? Global economic competition, creating racial tensions at home. We have to understand that. We have not to only understand that, but understand that many of the people lining up to take these new jobs in technology are people who work for 25% less than we do. And are just as skilled technologically. So increasingly, our destiny is being decided in the industrial and the financial capitals of the world. And we have somehow to protect all of these people sitting out there and their families with what? Our own self-development. I want to see a rising from this audience, not just the mom and pop stores. I want to see rising from this audience the mega conglomerate companies, the ITTs and the ATTs, with the ability to hire hundreds of thousands of people, put them to work, shelter our community from the forces of globalization, make it possible for us to meet the challenges of everyday life. If we don't do that, we continue to remain exposed to those globalizing forces. We may all have PhDs and no jobs. No jobs. So we have to think about the nature of our development. Sometimes I tell my friends that we talk about, well, business is the way. I say, fine. Let's look at that. In 1980, there were 242,000 businesses in this country. In that 10-year period, in 1990, we did great, the census figures will tell you. We're up over 632,000 businesses. Tremendous business growth. You know how many the average business employs? 1.2 employees. There's something wrong with that picture. And so those of you who are going into business, those of you who are thinking about the future, want to apply technology, think about economies of scale. Think big. Because the people who put us in this position did not get there by thinking small. Slavery was no mom and pop enterprise, folks. Somebody said, I can go from there to here with the rum trade. And even though it's dangerous, it is a huge undertaking. I can make lots of money if I did that. Think big. If you don't think as big as your oppressor, you will always be subordinate. So it seems to me that that is our challenge for the future. Let me conclude with an observation from another rap, from Boogie Down Productions. This is Lawrence Parker's words and music, and he says something very important. The age of the ignorant rapper is done. Knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone. The stereotype must be lost that love and peace and knowledge is soft. Do away with that and understand one fact. For love, peace must attack. And attack real strong, stronger than war, to conquer it and its law. mental pictures, stereotypes, and fake history reinforce mystery. And when mystery is reinforced, that only means that knowledge has been lost. When you know who you really are, peace and knowledge shines like a star. I've only shown you a simple fact. It takes a nation of millions to hold us people back, which is whack, but we can correct that. Teach and learn what it is to be black, 'cause they're teaching birds to be cats. But ask yourself, homeboy, why is that? Thank you very much.
Please remain seated. Kindly remain seated. Thank you. I would just like to recognize Dr. Gail Gibson, the Director of Freshman Year, who is on platform. I'm very sorry.
Dr. Waters has agreed to respond to a few questions in the remaining moments that we have. Are there any questions? Yes?
Economies of scale is an economic concept. What it means that when you enter into the process of production, you have to think about the level of that production, and economies of scale is whether or not if you're going to have a small productive process, then the inputs into that productive process are going to likewise be small. If you want to have a large output in terms of your economic process, then you're going to have to figure out how to put more powerful inputs into the system. So economies of scale is economies of the size of the output that you want as a result of the process of production. Yeah.
Feel free to use the PA system at the bottom of the stage.
Yeah, Dr. Walters, as I talk to many of my peers and students, I realize that in terms of seeing the future, many people just look to either medicine or law as the utmost to which they can achieve. But when you ask them, well, after you become a doctor, then what? There's no answer to that. In other words, they see that as the ceiling. How can we show, how can the educators and us people in general show others that even though you become a doctor or a lawyer or teacher or whatever, there's still something beyond that in terms of teaching people, in terms of correcting the wrongs that we face in society and coming together to find solutions, that should be our ultimate goal. How do we go about getting people to realize that?
I think one way to do that is to raise up the examples of professionals who are doing exactly what you're talking about. And we do have those examples. My mind goes to Dr. LaSalle Lafall, who is a distinguished heart surgeon at Howard University, and who is chairman of the National Board of Surgeons also. Here is a distinguished African-American physician who spends his time and his resources contributing to medical projects in South Africa and to urban inner-city areas, to directing task forces of doctors into poverty-stricken areas on the continent of Africa and things like that. So I think that what we have to do is to find and hold up to our students and our community the examples of people who are doing things like that with their resources and with their time and with their training.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Oh, one other thing. In our community, we have leaders. Part of the thing you talked about from Boogie Down Productions, the guy said, when you know who you are, nothing can hold you back. Some of the leaders that teach us who we are in our community, like Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Jeffries, who was run out of City College because for speaking the truth. And nobody questioned basically the truth in what he said. He just said he shouldn't have said it. You know, these people are getting to the stage where soon, as much as we'd like it not to be, they're going to move on to the next level of existence, whatever that is. And what scares me most is that I don't see anybody coming up to replace them. How can we influence our students and whatnot?
Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, most potent, grave, and reverend brothers, my very noble and approved good fellows, it is with tremendous joy and happiness that I greet you as you assemble for a reunion commemorating the 44th year of the founding of this chapter. I salute you, the fellow jewels who are present, and express my regrets for not being able to be with you on this occasion. To all of you, my brothers, who have carried on the tradition since the initiation of this chapter in 1853, I salute you. I salute your perseverance, your commitment, and your dedication to the principles and ideals that Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity stands for, and for the propagation of Delta Phi chapter. When I first came to Jackson State some 47 years ago, there was no chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I was rushed by other fraternities, but was not inclined to become affiliated with them. So during the summer, the end of my freshman year, I worked at the post office in St. Louis, Missouri. And there I met two men who were matriculated at Lincoln University Law School. Their demeanor, their character, their ambition, their dignity was worth emulating. Recognizing me to be an 18-year-old inquisitive young mind, just right for guidance, they nurtured my appetite for upward mobility and persuaded me to seek the possibility for starting a chapter at Jackson State College. Subsequently, upon returning to campus, I discovered the other jewels who were also interested in bringing to Jackson State College a fraternity of men in pursuit of academic excellence. I'm proud to have been a key player in the establishment of this chapter. I'm proud of the accomplishments of all the jewels of Delta Phi chapter, and I'm proud of you, who, like the soldiers of Flanders Fields, carry on the torch of high idealism that has been handed to you. To the Honorable Mayor, you are the epitome of change. We dreamed of in 1853, but could not perceive its actualization. Thank you for ascending to an unimaginable height. To all of you who represent the New World Order, mentioned in Margaret Walker's For My People, I am so very proud of you. Thank you, one and all, brothers of Delta Phi chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. May God bless you.